Sometimes nature hides its biggest secrets in the places we trust the most. The storm rolled across northern Montana just after midnight, rattling the windows of Megan Carter's small farmhouse as cold rain hammered against the roof. Inside the living room, Bella lay curled on a pile of blankets beside the fireplace, breathing heavily while Megan knelt beside her with shaking hands. Bella had been part of Megan's life for almost 6 years, and the Golden Shepherd mix had always been calm, affectionate, and incredibly gentle. But tonight, something about her behavior felt different. She kept glancing nervously toward the back door every few seconds, her ears twitching whenever thunder echoed through the valley. "It's okay, girl," Megan whispered softly, brushing Bella's damp fur away from her eyes. "You're safe." The veterinarian, Dr. Ethan Brooks, arrived 20 minutes later after driving nearly 12 miles through the storm from the nearby town of Silver Creek. He stepped inside carrying a black medical bag while water dripped from the shoulders of his jacket. "How long has she been in labor?" he asked quickly. "Almost 3 hours," Megan replied nervously. She started pacing around sunset, but then she kept trying to get outside. She's never acted like this before. Ethan crouched beside Bella carefully, watching her breathing pattern while she let out a low whine. "First litter?" "Yeah." Bella suddenly stiffened. Another contraction hit, and Megan instinctively grabbed her paw while the storm lights flickered overhead. A few moments later, the first puppy arrived. Megan's face lit up with relief. "Oh my God," she whispered emotionally. "She did it." Ethan gently picked up the tiny newborn with a towel, but instead of smiling, his expression slowly changed. His eyes narrowed. The room became quiet except for the sound of rain hitting the windows. "Doctor?" Megan asked nervously. Ethan didn't answer right away. He carefully turned the puppy toward the light from the fireplace. Its fur was unusually dark, almost silver black, and its legs looked longer than normal for a newborn. Then Ethan noticed the eyes. They were already partially open. His face lost color immediately. "That's strange," he muttered under his breath. Megan's smile faded. "What do you mean strange?" Before Ethan could answer, Bella suddenly growled. It wasn't loud, but it was enough to make both of them freeze. Bella had never growled at anyone before, especially not Megan. The dog quickly pulled the puppy closer against her stomach, her body tense as if she was afraid someone might take it away. Ethan slowly placed the puppy back beside her. "Let's just stay calm," he said carefully. Sometimes newborns can have unusual traits. But his voice no longer sounded confident. Another puppy arrived minutes later. Then another. The storm outside intensified, thunder shaking the old farmhouse, while Bella became more protective with each birth. She kept positioning her body between the puppies and the humans in the room, her eyes locked toward the back windows, as though she sensed something outside in the darkness. Megan noticed Ethan staring silently at the fourth puppy for several long seconds. "You're scaring me," she admitted quietly. "What's wrong with them?" Ethan swallowed hard. "I'm not sure yet." Then the final puppy was born. The second Ethan saw it, he immediately stepped backward. Bella reacted instantly, grabbing the newborn gently in her mouth before crawling underneath the kitchen table where the shadows hid her from view. A deep, uneasy silence filled the farmhouse. Rain poured outside. The lights flickered again. Ethan stared beneath the table, his breathing suddenly shallow. Megan looked at him with growing panic. "Doctor, what is it?" Ethan never took his eyes off the tiny animal hidden beside Bella. After several seconds, he finally whispered the words that Megan would never forget for the rest of her life. "Those aren't normal puppies." Megan barely slept for the rest of the night. The storm finally weakened around 4 in the morning, but the uneasy feeling inside the farmhouse only seemed to grow stronger. Bella remained hidden beneath the kitchen table, curled protectively around her newborns while her brown eyes followed every movement in the room. Usually affectionate and trusting, she now watched Megan and Dr. Ethan Brooks with cautious intensity, letting out quiet warning growls whenever either of them stepped too close to the last puppy. The strange newborn stayed tucked tightly against Bella's chest, almost completely hidden beneath her front legs. "I have never seen her act like this," Megan whispered as she wrapped a blanket around her shoulders. "She has always loved people." Ethan stayed kneeling several feet away, carefully observing Bella without making sudden movements. "She is scared," he replied quietly. "Not aggressive. There is a difference." Megan looked toward the other puppies resting beside their mother. At first glance, they looked mostly normal, but now that she stared longer, she began noticing details she had missed earlier in the chaos of the storm. Their fur was much darker than Bella's golden coat. Their paws already looked unusually large for newborns. Even stranger, none of them made the soft whining sounds Megan remembered hearing from other litters online. They were almost silent. Bella suddenly lifted her head toward the back window. Her ears stiffened. Then she released a low, nervous whine that immediately made Ethan turn around. "Did you hear that?" Megan asked softly. Outside, somewhere beyond the dark tree line behind the farmhouse, a distant sound echoed through the wet night air. It was faint and brief, almost carried away by the wind before either of them could fully recognize it. Ethan's face tightened slightly. Bella responded instantly, pulling the hidden puppy closer against her stomach. "I think we should move them to the clinic tomorrow," Ethan said carefully. "Just for observation." "Observation for what exactly?" Megan asked. Ethan hesitated. "I am not ready to say yet." That answer only made her more nervous. As dawn slowly approached, Ethan performed a basic examination from a safe distance, while Bella reluctantly allowed him to inspect the other puppies one at a time. The first 4 appeared healthy, but each one showed unusual traits. Their eyes reflected light earlier than expected. Their ears were slightly more pointed than most puppies. One of them even attempted to crawl across the blanket far sooner than normal for a newborn. Only hours old. Ethan remained quiet through most of the examination, but Megan noticed him writing several notes into his small leather notebook. "You are hiding something from me," she finally said. Ethan sighed heavily before closing the notebook. "I do not want to jump to conclusions. But you have one." He looked back toward Bella under the table. A few weeks ago, there were reports from ranchers near Blackwood Forest about strange tracks around livestock properties. Wildlife officers believed it might have been coyotes at first. Megan frowned. "Coyotes?" Ethan nodded slowly. "But the tracks were too large." The room became silent again. Megan suddenly remembered something. About 2 months earlier, Bella had disappeared overnight during a thunderstorm and returned the next morning covered in mud and pine needles. Megan had searched nearly 3 miles of back roads before Bella finally scratched at the front porch around sunrise. At the time, she assumed the dog had simply gotten lost. Now that memory felt different. Much different. Bella suddenly stood up beneath the table, startling both of them. She carefully picked up the hidden puppy again and carried it farther into the shadows near the laundry room. Ethan slowly rose to his feet, his expression uneasy. "Megan," he said quietly, "until we understand exactly what is happening here, do not post photos online. Do not tell neighbors. And if Bella tries to leave the house with those puppies, do not let her outside alone." Megan stared at him in disbelief. "You are making this sound dangerous." Ethan looked toward the dark windows where rain still slid slowly down the glass. "I think Bella is protecting them from something," he said softly. "What worries me is that I am starting to think something outside may also be trying to protect them too." By late afternoon, the storm clouds had finally cleared over Silver Creek, but the uneasy atmosphere inside Megan Carter's farmhouse only grew heavier. Bella had barely moved from the laundry room all day except to eat or drink water, and every time Megan approached the hidden puppy, the dog immediately placed herself between them. It was not anger in Bella's eyes. It was fear. Deep, instinctive fear. Megan sat quietly on the kitchen floor watching Bella nurse the litter while sunlight filtered weakly through the windows. The 4 visible puppies slept close together near their mother's stomach, but the 5th one remained separated behind Bella's front legs where shadows partially concealed its body. Megan could only catch brief glimpses of it whenever Bella shifted position. Each glimpse made her stomach tighten. The puppy looked different. Not just slightly different. Wrong. Its fur seemed thicker and darker than the others, almost silver along the spine, and its eyes reflected light with an eerie brightness whenever it turned its head toward the room. Around 6 that evening, Dr. Ethan Brooks returned carrying additional medical equipment and a portable scanner from his clinic. Bella immediately stood up the second he entered the farmhouse. A low growl rumbled deep in her chest. "Easy, girl," Ethan said softly, keeping his distance. "I am not here to hurt them." Bella did not relax. Megan noticed Ethan looked exhausted, as though he had spent the entire day researching something disturbing. He carefully placed the equipment on the kitchen counter before turning toward Megan. "I checked wildlife reports from the last few months," he said quietly. There have been several unexplained sightings near Blackwood Forest. Megan folded her arms nervously. Sightings of what? Ethan hesitated. Large canine tracks. Too large for coyotes. Too narrow for wolves. Megan stared at him. I thought wolves disappeared from this part of Montana years ago. Most people believe they did. Bella suddenly lifted her head toward the back door again. Her ears stiffened. Then she slowly stood and walked toward the window beside the sink, carefully blocking the hidden puppy behind her body. Ethan followed her gaze toward the darkening tree line outside. She keeps doing that, Megan whispered. Ever since last night. Ethan moved closer to the glass and looked outside. The backyard stretched nearly 40 yards before reaching the edge of Blackwood Forest, where thick pine trees swallowed the fading sunlight. At first, everything appeared normal. Then Ethan noticed movement between the trees. Something large stepped briefly into view before disappearing again behind the shadows. Megan saw Ethan's expression change instantly. What is it? She asked nervously. Did you see something? Ethan remained silent for several seconds. Maybe, he finally replied. Bella suddenly released a sharp bark unlike anything Megan had ever heard from her before. It was not playful or defensive. It sounded like a warning. The hidden puppy immediately reacted. A strange sound emerged from beneath Bella's body, low and soft but deeper than the tiny cries of the other puppies. Ethan slowly turned around. Did you hear that? Megan nodded slowly. That did not sound normal. Ethan carefully knelt several feet away from Bella again. This time, instead of examining the visible puppies first, he focused entirely on the hidden one. Megan, he said quietly, I need you to think carefully. When Bella disappeared 2 months ago, where exactly did you find her? Megan frowned as she tried to remember. Near Miller's Creek. About 3 miles north of here. Ethan's face tightened. That is less than a mile from Blackwood Forest. Bella suddenly grabbed the hidden puppy gently by the scruff and carried it deeper into the laundry room shadows. The other puppies remained behind, but this one clearly mattered more to her. Megan felt chills run down her arms. Why does she keep separating that puppy from the others? Ethan did not answer immediately. He opened his medical bag and slowly pulled out a small flashlight. Because, he finally said, his voice tense, I think she knows there is something different about that one too. The moment Ethan clicked on the flashlight, Bella's entire body stiffened. Her eyes locked on the beam instantly. Then, from somewhere beyond the dark forest outside, a distant howl echoed across the valley. Bella froze completely, and for the first time since the puppies were born, the hidden newborn answered the sound. The sound coming from the hidden puppy lasted only a few seconds, but it changed the atmosphere inside the farmhouse instantly. Megan felt every hair on her arms rise as the tiny animal pressed itself tightly against Bella beneath the laundry room shelves. The distant howl outside faded into silence, yet Bella remained frozen in place, her eyes fixed toward the dark forest beyond the kitchen windows. Dr. Ethan Brooks slowly lowered the flashlight, his face pale with disbelief. That was not a bark, Megan whispered nervously. Ethan swallowed hard. No, he replied quietly. It was not. For several long seconds nobody moved. Even the other puppies seemed strangely alert now, lifting their tiny heads as though they had recognized the sound too. Bella suddenly walked back toward them and curled protectively around the entire litter, but she kept the unusual puppy hidden closest to her chest. Megan sat down at the kitchen table, trying to steady her breathing. Tell me the truth, she said finally. What do you think that thing is? Ethan immediately shook his head. Do not call it a thing. Megan looked surprised by the sharpness in his voice. Ethan sighed and rubbed his forehead tiredly. I do not know exactly what we are dealing with yet, but whatever that puppy is, Bella clearly sees it as her baby. Outside, darkness settled completely over the valley. The wind had calmed after the storm, leaving the forest unusually quiet. Too quiet. Ethan eventually stood and walked toward the back door. I want to check something outside. Megan immediately grabbed his arm. You are seriously going out there? Just the porch. He opened the door slowly while cool night air drifted into the farmhouse, carrying the scent of wet pine trees and rain-soaked dirt. Bella reacted instantly. She jumped to her feet and released another warning growl, this time louder than before. Ethan stopped halfway through the doorway. Bella, he asked softly. The dog stared directly at the darkness outside, not at Ethan. Then Megan noticed it too. Fresh tracks stretched across the muddy backyard leading from the tree line toward the house. Ethan stepped carefully onto the porch and crouched beside them. His expression immediately changed. "Megan," he called quietly. "Do not come out here." Of course she ignored him. Wrapping a blanket tightly around herself, Megan stepped onto the porch and looked down beside Ethan. The tracks were enormous, much larger than Bella's paws, larger than any coyote she had ever seen near the property. They circled around the farmhouse windows and stopped directly beneath the laundry room wall, where Bella and the puppies were hiding inside. Megan felt her stomach twist. "Something came here last night," she whispered. Ethan nodded slowly. "And judging by the depth of the tracks, it stayed here for a while." Bella suddenly barked from inside the house again, sharper this time. Ethan quickly stood and shut the door behind them. The moment they stepped back inside, Bella relaxed slightly, though she still watched the windows constantly. Ethan moved toward his medical bag and pulled out a small ruler used for measuring animal wounds. He compared it silently against one of the muddy paw prints on his boot. "That cannot be right," he muttered under his breath. "What?" Megan asked nervously. Ethan looked up slowly. "These tracks are nearly 5 inches wide." Megan stared at him blankly. "What does that mean?" Ethan hesitated before answering. "It means whatever made them is much larger than a coyote." Before Megan could respond, headlights suddenly appeared through the front windows. A pickup truck pulled into the driveway. Bella immediately became agitated again, standing protectively over the litter. Megan peeked outside and recognized the vehicle instantly. "It is Hank Miller," she said quietly. Ethan frowned. "Your neighbor?" Megan nodded. Hank owned a nearby cattle ranch and spent most of his life hunting in the mountains surrounding Blackwood Forest. He stepped out of the truck carrying a flashlight and quickly approached the porch with a worried expression. Megan opened the door cautiously. "Hank, what are you doing here?" The older rancher removed his hat slowly, breathing heavily from the cold air. "I saw tracks near my livestock pens tonight," he said nervously. "Big ones." Ethan and Megan exchanged a glance immediately. Hank lowered his voice. "And about 20 minutes ago, I heard something howling near your property." Bella suddenly growled louder than ever before. Then all 5 puppies began, reacting at once. But while the 4 normal puppies whimpered softly beside their mother, the hidden one answered the darkness outside again with the exact same haunting sound. Hank Miller stood frozen near the front doorway as the strange cry echoed through the farmhouse for the second time. The older rancher slowly turned toward the laundry room, where Bella guarded her litter with tense, watchful eyes. "That did not sound like any puppy I have ever heard," he said quietly. Megan crossed her arms tightly against the cold creeping into the house. "You heard it too." Hank nodded without taking his eyes off Bella. "I heard something almost identical out near my north pasture 3 nights ago." Dr. Ethan Brooks immediately looked up. "Near Blackwood Forest." "Right along the tree line," Hank replied. "My horses got nervous around midnight. Then the dogs started barking at something in the dark." Bella suddenly moved again, carefully nudging the hidden puppy farther behind the washing machine, while keeping the other 4 close beside her. The movement only deepened the tension inside the room. Ethan slowly stepped closer to Hank and lowered his voice. "Have you told anyone else about those tracks?" Hank shook his head. "Not yet. But if ranchers start losing livestock, people around here are going to panic fast." Megan felt a knot tighten in her stomach. Silver Creek was a small Montana town where rumors spread quickly. If neighbors believed something dangerous was hiding near Blackwood Forest, they would not hesitate to call wildlife officers or animal control. And if Bella became connected to it somehow, Megan feared what might happen next. Ethan seemed to share the same concern. "Nobody can know about the puppies yet," he said firmly. Hank raised an eyebrow. "You seriously think those things are connected to whatever is out there?" Before Ethan could answer, Bella suddenly barked toward the back windows again. All 3 adults turned immediately. For a split second, Megan thought she saw movement beyond the glass. Something tall and dark standing near the tree line. Then it vanished. Hank stepped toward the window quickly. "Did you see that?" Ethan nodded slowly. "I saw something." The rancher's expression hardened. "I am getting my rifle from the truck." "No," Ethan said sharply. Hank looked surprised. "If there is a predator circling this house, we cannot just stand here. And if it is only trying to reach the puppies?" Ethan replied quietly. The room fell silent. Megan stared at him in disbelief. "You think whatever is outside came here for them?" Ethan looked toward Bella, whose body remained positioned protectively around the hidden puppy. I think Bella has known from the beginning that something was coming. Megan suddenly remembered another strange detail from the past few weeks. There is something else, she admitted quietly. Ethan turned toward her immediately. What? About a month ago, Bella started bringing dead branches onto the back porch every night. Hank frowned. Branches? Megan nodded slowly. At first I thought she was building some kind of nest for the puppies, but she kept arranging them near the back door in circles. Ethan's face tightened with concern. Animals sometimes display instinctive behavior when they feel threatened, he explained quietly. Especially mothers. Hank glanced uneasily toward the windows again. Well, something sure has her spooked. The hidden puppy suddenly crawled partially out from beneath Bella's front legs. For the first time, Hank saw it clearly. The rancher's expression immediately changed. The newborn's eyes reflected pale gold in the dim kitchen light, far brighter than normal puppies. Its narrow muzzle already appeared more defined than the others, and the dark silver fur along its back stood slightly upright despite its tiny size. Good Lord, Hank whispered. Bella instantly pulled the puppy back against her chest and growled low again. Hank slowly stepped backward. That is not normal. Ethan remained calm, though Megan noticed tension in his face. We still do not know exactly what it is. Hank looked directly at him. You know more than you are saying. Ethan hesitated before answering. There used to be reports decades ago about red wolves crossing through these mountains during harsh winters. Most experts believe they disappeared from Montana a long time ago. You think one survived? Megan asked softly. Ethan glanced toward the hidden puppy again. I think something survived. Outside, the wind suddenly shifted direction, rattling the porch lights softly. Bella stood up instantly. Her ears locked toward the backyard once more. Then came another distant howl from the forest. This time it sounded much closer. The hidden puppy answered immediately, louder than before. And for the first time since arriving at the farmhouse, Bella did not try to silence it. The farmhouse remained tense long after the second howl faded into the darkness beyond Blackwood Forest. Nobody spoke for nearly a minute. Bella stood over the puppies with her body rigid, her eyes fixed toward the backyard, as if she were waiting for something to appear from the trees. The hidden puppy rested quietly beneath her chest now, no longer crying, almost as though hearing the distant call had calmed it. Hank Miller finally exhaled slowly and removed his hat again. I do not like this one bit, he muttered. Something out there knows those puppies are here. Dr. Ethan Brooks remained focused on Bella. No, he said quietly. I think it knows one puppy is here. Megan looked back and forth between them nervously. You keep talking like this is impossible. Ethan sighed heavily before sitting down at the kitchen table. His exhaustion finally showed in his face. Maybe it is, he admitted. But I spent most of today going through old wildlife records from this region. Hank crossed his arms. And Ethan looked toward the hidden puppy again. 30 years ago, there were confirmed sightings of red wolves moving through the northern forests near the Montana border. Hank frowned immediately. Red wolves belong in the south. Not here. Exactly, Ethan replied. Which is why biologists assumed the reports were mistakes. Megan slowly sat across from him. What does that have to do with Bella? Ethan hesitated for several seconds before answering carefully. Red wolves are extremely rare. They are also highly intelligent and incredibly protective of their family groups. Bella suddenly lowered her head beside the hidden puppy, gently licking its fur. While listening toward the windows, Ethan continued quietly. If Bella encountered an isolated male somewhere near Blackwood Forest during her disappearance, he stopped before finishing the sentence. Megan stared at him in disbelief. You think that puppy is part wolf? Ethan slowly nodded. Part red wolf, specifically. Hank immediately shook his head. That is impossible. That is what I thought too, Ethan admitted. Until tonight. The older rancher walked toward the laundry room and cautiously studied the litter from a distance. The more he looked at the hidden puppy, the less it resembled the others. Its eyes followed movement too carefully for a newborn only hours old. Its paws already looked larger and stronger. Even the shape of its face appeared more narrow and alert than a normal dog. Bella suddenly lifted her lip slightly in warning. Hank backed away immediately. She knows, he whispered. Ethan nodded quietly. Mothers usually do. Megan looked down at her hands, trying to process everything. But if it really is part wolf, why would Bella hide it from us? Ethan answered softly. Because she is afraid we will take it away. The room fell silent again. Then Megan remembered something else. When Bella came home after disappearing near Miller's Creek, she said slowly. She had a cut near her shoulder. Ethan looked up immediately. A cut. Megan nodded. Nothing serious. I cleaned it myself. But she was exhausted. And dirty, like she had been running for hours. Hank frowned deeply. Coyotes sometimes chased domestic dogs near the forest. Ethan's expression suddenly changed. Unless something protected her. Megan looked at him. What are you saying? Ethan leaned back in his chair slowly. I think Bella did not wander into Blackwood Forest by accident. Bella suddenly raised her head again at the sound of movement outside the back porch. Everyone froze instantly. Slow footsteps circled through the wet grass beyond the house. Heavy footsteps. Not hurried. Not aggressive. Just watching. Bella did not bark this time. Instead, she carefully nudged the hidden puppy forward with her nose. The tiny animal crawled weakly toward the window while the other puppies remained asleep. Then something unbelievable happened. From the darkness outside the glass, a large silhouette slowly emerged near the porch light. Megan gasped softly. Standing just beyond the yard was a massive canine with reddish fur shimmering beneath the moonlight. It was taller and leaner than any wolf she had ever seen. But what shocked her most was its behavior. The animal was not staring at the house. It was staring directly at the hidden puppy. Bella remained perfectly calm. And when the wild creature lowered its head slightly toward the window, Bella gently lowered hers too. For several long seconds, nobody inside the farmhouse dared to move. The massive red-colored canine remained perfectly still near the edge of the backyard, its amber eyes reflecting softly beneath the porch light, while cold night wind moved through its thick fur. Megan could hear her own heartbeat pounding in her ears. She had lived near Blackwood Forest for almost 10 years and had never seen an animal like this before. It looked wild, powerful, and completely out of place, standing only a few yards from her home. Yet what unsettled her most was not fear. It was the strange calmness in Bella. The golden shepherd mix slowly stepped closer to the back window, while keeping herself between the litter and the rest of the room. She did not bark. She did not growl. Instead, she stared quietly at the creature outside with something Megan never expected to see in her eyes. Recognition. Dr. Ethan Brooks slowly approached the window beside Megan, careful not to make sudden movements. Do not turn on any more lights, he whispered softly. Hank Miller stood frozen near the hallway, still gripping his hat tightly in one hand. That thing has been coming here, he muttered under his breath. Ethan nodded slowly. I think it has. Outside, the red wolf took another slow step forward. The hidden puppy immediately responded, crawling away from Bella for the first time and letting out another soft cry toward the glass. Megan held her breath. Bella watched carefully but did not stop it. The wild animal lowered its head slightly again, almost cautiously, before sitting down near the porch as though it understood it could not come any closer. Oh my God, Megan whispered. It is looking for the puppy. Ethan's voice remained quiet. No, I think it is checking on the puppy. The difference between those two statements suddenly felt enormous. Bella slowly lay back down near the laundry room entrance and gently pulled the hidden puppy against her chest again. The red wolf outside remained calm the entire time. No aggression. No pacing. Just watching. Hank shook his head in disbelief. I have hunted around these mountains for 40 years, he said quietly. Wolves do not act like this around people. Ethan stared at the animal carefully. Red wolves are different from gray wolves. Smaller populations. Stronger family bonds. More social behavior. Megan looked at him nervously. So what happens now? Ethan hesitated. Honestly, I do not know. The red wolf suddenly turned its head toward the forest behind the house. Somewhere deeper in the trees, another distant howl echoed through the valley, softer and farther away than before. The animal near the porch listened for a moment, then slowly stood up. Bella immediately raised her head again. Megan watched in amazement as the two animals locked eyes one final time. Then the red wolf looked toward the hidden puppy once more before quietly disappearing back into the darkness of Blackwood Forest. The moment it vanished, Bella relaxed completely for the first time since giving birth. She curled around the puppies and closed her eyes briefly while releasing a slow, exhausted breath. Ethan noticed it immediately. She trusts it, he said softly. Megan stared at Bella in disbelief. But why? Ethan remained silent for several moments as pieces of the story finally started connecting in his mind. When Bella disappeared near Miller's Creek, he said carefully, "I think she ran into danger somewhere inside Blackwood Forest." Hank frowned. "Coyotes?" Ethan nodded slowly. "Probably." Megan looked down at Bella protectively nursing the puppies. "And you think that wolf saved her?" Ethan glanced toward the dark windows again. "I think Bella would not have survived without it." The room fell quiet once more. Megan suddenly remembered how terrified Bella had looked when she returned home weeks earlier. The exhaustion, the mud covering her fur, the cut near her shoulder. At the time, Megan thought her dog had simply gotten lost. But now another possibility formed in her mind. Maybe Bella had not been running from something that night. Maybe she had been trying to return to someone. Bella opened her eyes suddenly and looked directly at Megan. For the first time since the puppies were born, the fear in her expression seemed gone. In its place was something else entirely. Trust. Megan slowly knelt beside her and gently touched her head. Bella did not pull away this time. The hidden puppy remained tucked safely against her chest, asleep beside the others at last. Ethan quietly exhaled and leaned back against the kitchen counter. "Whatever happens next," he said softly, "we need to protect them." Hank looked toward the forest one final time through the dark glass. "From who?" Ethan's expression turned serious again. "From people who would never understand what they are looking at." Over the next several days, life inside Megan Carter's farmhouse changed completely. Word about strange animal tracks near Blackwood Forest had already started spreading through Silver Creek, but nobody outside the house knew the real reason for the rumors. Megan followed Dr. Ethan Brooks's advice carefully. She did not post photos online. She did not allow visitors inside. Even Hank Miller kept quiet despite growing pressure from nearby ranchers who claimed they heard howling at night near their properties. Meanwhile, Bella stayed close to her puppies almost every second of the day. But something about her behavior had changed. The fear that once filled her eyes was slowly disappearing. Now she seemed calmer, more confident, as though she finally believed her puppies were safe. The hidden puppy changed the fastest. By the end of the first week, it was already noticeably larger than the others. Its silver-red fur had become thicker, and its eyes followed movement with unusual intelligence. While the other puppies slept most of the day, this one stayed alert, constantly watching doors and windows the same way Bella did. Yet despite its wild appearance, the puppy showed no aggression. In fact, it seemed unusually gentle around Bella, often curling against her neck while she rested beside the fireplace. One cold evening, Ethan returned to the farmhouse carrying a folder of printed wildlife records and DNA results from a laboratory nearly 100 miles away in Billings. Megan immediately noticed the serious expression on his face. "You got the results," she whispered. Ethan slowly nodded. Hank was already there drinking coffee near the kitchen table, and both men exchanged uneasy looks before Ethan finally opened the folder. "The test confirmed it," he said quietly. "The fifth puppy carries genetic markers connected to red wolves." Megan sat down slowly, trying to absorb the words. Even after everything they had witnessed, hearing confirmation still felt unreal. "So it is true," she whispered. Ethan nodded again. "Part domestic dog, part red wolf." Hank leaned back heavily in his chair. "People are going to lose their minds if this gets out." Ethan looked serious, which is exactly why it cannot. Megan glanced toward Bella sleeping peacefully beside the litter. "What happens to the puppy now?" Ethan hesitated before answering. Normally, wildlife authorities would remove an animal like this immediately. Bella suddenly lifted her head as if she understood every word. The hidden puppy pressed itself closer against her chest. Ethan noticed Megan's expression change instantly. "But I am not calling anyone," he added softly. Hank looked surprised. "You are willing to risk your career over this?" Ethan stared toward Bella quietly. "I became a veterinarian to protect animals, not destroy families." Megan felt tears sting her eyes unexpectedly. For days she had secretly feared someone would eventually take the puppy away from Bella. But now, watching the mother dog gently licking all 5 puppies while keeping them close together, she realized something important. Bella never treated the unusual puppy differently from the others. To her, there was no mystery, no fear, no monster, only her baby. Later that night, Megan stepped outside onto the back porch wrapped in a heavy blanket while snowflakes drifted softly across the valley for the first time that season. The forest beyond the yard stood dark and silent beneath the moonlight. Then movement appeared near the trees again. The red wolf slowly emerged from the shadows exactly as before. Megan froze, but did not run. The animal remained near the edge of the property, watching quietly. Bella appeared beside the porch door moments later, carrying the unusual puppy gently in her mouth. Megan's breath caught instantly. Bella carefully lowered the puppy onto the wooden porch boards before sitting beside it calmly. The tiny hybrid looked toward the red wolf immediately. The wild animal stepped slightly closer, but stopped several yards away. No growling. No fear. Only silence. Megan watched the scene with tears slowly forming in her eyes. For the first time, she finally understood the truth. The creature outside had not been stalking the farmhouse. It had been protecting its family from a distance the entire time. The red wolf looked toward Bella once more before turning slowly back toward Blackwood Forest. The hybrid puppy let out a soft cry as the animal disappeared into the snow-covered trees. Bella gently nudged the puppy with her nose before carrying it safely back inside the warm farmhouse. And for the first time since this strange story began, Megan no longer felt afraid of what the puppy was becoming. Winter settled fully over Silver Creek during the weeks that followed, covering the valleys and pine forests with thick snow, while life inside Megan Carter's farmhouse slowly found peace again. The puppies grew stronger every day, tumbling across the living room floor beside the fireplace, while Bella watched over them with quiet pride. But the unusual puppy continued to stand apart from the others in ways nobody could ignore. By the time it reached 8 weeks old, it was nearly twice the size of its littermates. Its silver-red coat had become strikingly beautiful beneath the winter sunlight, and its amber eyes carried the same calm intelligence Megan remembered seeing in the wild creature near Blackwood Forest. Yet despite its appearance, the puppy remained gentle and deeply attached to Bella. Every night it curled beside her before falling asleep, just like the others. Dr. Ethan Brooks visited often over the following months, quietly monitoring the hybrid's health while keeping its existence secret from outsiders. Even Hank Miller slowly changed his opinion after watching the animal interact with Bella and the other puppies. The fear that once filled the farmhouse gradually faded, replaced by something unexpected: wonder. One snowy morning in late January, Megan stood near the kitchen window sipping coffee while the puppies played outside inside a fenced section of the backyard. Bella lay calmly near the porch steps watching them. The hybrid puppy moved differently from the others now, faster and lighter across the snow, yet it always stayed close to Bella as though instinctively protecting her. Suddenly, the puppy froze near the edge of the yard and lifted its head toward Blackwood Forest. Bella immediately looked up too. Megan felt her heartbeat quicken. A familiar shape slowly emerged between the snow-covered trees. The red wolf had returned. But this time something felt different. The wild animal did not stop near the forest edge. Instead, it cautiously stepped several feet closer into the open clearing behind the house, while snowflakes drifted through the cold morning air. Bella remained completely calm. The hybrid puppy wagged its tail excitedly before running a short distance toward the wolf, stopping halfway, as though waiting for permission. Megan held her breath. The red wolf lowered its head gently, studying the young hybrid in silence. Then something incredible happened. Bella slowly walked forward and stood beside the puppy without fear. The two animals remained there together beneath the falling snow, while the wild wolf watched quietly from only yards away. No growling, no tension, only trust. Megan felt tears slowly fill her eyes as she realized what she was witnessing. This was not a predator returning to claim something. This was family. Ethan arrived later that afternoon and listened quietly while Megan described everything she had seen. The veterinarian smiled softly for the first time in weeks. Animals understand things about loyalty and connection that people sometimes forget, he said. Megan glanced toward Bella sleeping peacefully beside all 5 puppies near the fireplace. I used to think something terrible had happened the night Bella disappeared into the forest, she admitted quietly. Now I think it might have been the most important night of her life. Ethan nodded slowly. And maybe yours too. As winter slowly turned toward spring, the strange story surrounding Blackwood Forest eventually faded into local legend. Ranchers stopped reporting mysterious tracks. The distant howls at night became less frequent. Life in Silver Creek moved on. But some evenings, just after sunset, Megan still spotted a familiar red figure standing silently near the trees beyond the farmhouse, always watching from a distance, always calm. And every single time, Bella would quietly sit beside the window with the hybrid puppy resting close against her side. One warm evening in early March, Megan stepped onto the porch and watched the sunset spill golden light across the valley while Bella and all 5 puppies played together in the grass. The hybrid suddenly paused and looked toward the forest one last time. Far beyond the trees, a distant howl echoed softly through the mountains. The young animal listened carefully before looking back at Bella. Then it ran toward her instead. Megan smiled through tears as Bella gently licked the puppy's face while the others crowded around them beneath the fading sunlight. In the end, Megan finally understood something she would never forget. Bella had never been hiding a monster inside her home. She had only been protecting a miracle that the world was not ready to understand.